Welcome to another bonus edition of the MTB Podcast, a segment of the weekly episode that I call Afterthoughts. This is one of my favorite parts of these weekly presentations because it gives us a chance to dig a little deeper, connect the dots, and really challenge ourselves to think critically about what we discussed during the main episode. In this bonus episode from the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time, Cycle C of the Roman Catholic Lectionary, we're looking at the Sermon on the Plain, Luke's version of what many people know as the Sermon on the Mount from Matthew's Gospel. Traditionally, Christians interpret these blessings and woes as promises of reward for the faithful and cautions to those who might be living outside of God's ideal plan. But in our conversation today, we're going to step away from that lens and ask ourselves, what do these teachings look like if we remove the supernatural framework and focus on how they can guide us in everyday life? So my goal here is to take each statement, like blessed are the poor or woe to the rich, and reimagine it through a humanistic perspective. We'll talk about empathy, community support, and ethical living as real life, here and now values instead of purely religious directives. Essentially, I want to see if these ideas can stand on their own merits, especially in a world where people rely on each other more than on any outside authority or higher power. To do that, we'll basically go line by line, pairing each blessing with its corresponding woe, then see how it might apply to modern social issues, from economic inequality and food insecurity to the ways we treat people who disagree with us. Hopefully, by the end, we'll find a new way to look at these ancient words, but one that resonates whether you're religious, spiritual but not religious, or just someone who wants to live in a more caring society. All right, let's start by looking at Jesus' original statement, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God," and its counterpart, "Woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort." Now, in its traditional religious context, this is clearly a promise of future reward for the poor and a warning for the wealthy who fail to share their riches. But how does that translate if we take out the supernatural element? Well, from a humanistic standpoint, we can read this as a direct call to empathize with those who are economically disadvantaged, not out of fear of divine judgment, but because our shared humanity demands it. Poverty isn't a divine test. It's often the result of social structures, inequalities, or sometimes just bad luck. When we come together through policies that ensure fair wages, collective support, things like food banks, or even direct charitable actions, we help reduce suffering in real, tangible ways. Meanwhile, the woe to the rich can serve as a reminder that hoarding wealth and ignoring those in need isn't just morally questionable. It also creates resentment, it destabilizes communities, and it erodes our trust in each other and in our society. So, reimagined for our time, the statement might sound something like this. Those who struggle financially are part of our common humanity. When we uplift them, everyone thrives. But if we hoard wealth and ignore the vulnerable, we create a society on shaky ground. It's certainly not as poetic, but flowery language isn't the point. The key is recognizing that a just and equitable society benefits all of us in very concrete, measurable ways. Our compassion, when it's put into action, can reshape communities far more powerfully than any promise of future blessings in some magical afterlife. Okay, next up, let's look at hunger. The original passage says, "Blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied. And woe to you who are well fed now, for you will go hungry." Traditionally, this suggests that those who currently lack food will one day be fulfilled, while those who enjoy abundance will face future emptiness. In a strictly religious sense, some interpret this as a promise that God will provide for the hungry in the end. But through a humanistic lens, it speaks more directly to our responsibility to ensure that no one goes without life's essentials. In today's world, food insecurity is a tangible problem that affects millions. Schools often organize backpack programs for weekend meals. Food pantries pop up in unexpected places, and grassroots activists push for policy changes. Things like living wages and better access to healthy groceries in so many of the communities that are food deserts. This isn't about divine intervention. It's about people helping people so that hunger doesn't undermine someone's health or their dignity. Meanwhile, the woe for the well-fed can be seen as a warning against complacency. If we're enjoying regular meals while ignoring those who are hungry, we contribute to a society where empathy is just in short supply, and that ultimately hurts everyone. Anyway, reimagined for our time, the statement might sound something like this. When we acknowledge and strive to meet each other's basic needs, we strengthen our common bonds. But turning a blind eye to the hunger of others can erode compassion and community. It's a reminder that staying mindful of others' struggles and actively working to alleviate them is what keeps us truly connected, and it's what builds strong communities and an even stronger society. Okay, next we have, "Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh," paired with, "Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep." A traditional reading suggests that those who are sad or grieving are going to find joy in the end, or especially in the afterlife, while people who currently revel in laughter, well, they're going to experience some future sorrow, potentially eternal sorrow. But from a humanistic standpoint, this can be seen as a call to empathize with those who are hurting and remember that none of us are immune to tough times. Emotional pain, whether it's heartbreak, loss, or everyday stress, touches everyone at some point. When someone around us is grieving, stepping up to listen, offer comfort, or just be present can forge a much deeper bond. By contrast, the warning about woe to the laughing, well, that can be understood as a reminder not to ignore others' sadness in our own quest for happiness. It's not suggesting we should never be joyful. It's just cautioning against allowing our good fortune to blind us to the suffering others may be enduring right now. So, reimagined for our time, the statement might sound something like this. Empathy for those in sorrow helps create deeper human connections. If we celebrate without acknowledging others' pain, we risk being shallow and disconnected. I think this message encourages us to embrace a mindful kind of joy, one that leaves room for compassion rather than pushing away the reality that others might be hurting. All right, moving on. The next part of Luke's text says, "Blessed are you when people hate you, exclude you, and insult you because of the Son of Man," followed by, "Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you." Traditionally, believers read this as encouragement to endure hostility for the sake of the faith. But in a humanistic view, however, we can interpret this as recognition that taking ethical stands, especially unpopular ones, can sometimes bring criticism and even rejection. If you hold firm to your principles in the face of pushback, That's a testament to genuine integrity, not just religious devotion. The flip side of this teaching warns against seeking universal admiration at the expense of truth or justice. It's easy to fall into the trap of wanting everyone's approval, but that often means watering down your values or ignoring wrongdoing just to maintain your popularity. The point isn't to make enemies on purpose. Rather, it's to understand that if everyone applauds you all the time, it might be a signal that you're avoiding tough, necessary conversations. In our world of social media and instant gratification, this message feels even more relevant than ever. Pursuing likes or applause, it can become a barrier to staying true to what really matters. So, reimagined for our time, the statement might sound something like this. Standing up for what's right, even if it goes against the crowd, reflects genuine integrity. Chasing popularity above all else can lead to moral compromise. When we remember that genuine relationships and meaningful progress often require sticking our necks out, we're less likely to be swayed by constant praise or terrified by possible criticism. Okay, so now that we've looked at all the blessings and woes through a humanistic lens and reimagined them for our time, I think a clear pattern has definitely emerged. Empathy, mutual responsibility, and social justice really lie at the heart of these teachings. But rather than promising a mystical payoff or threatening eternal punishment, the way we've reimagined them, I think, emphasizes the real-world consequences of our choices. Things like how ignoring hunger, poverty, sorrow, and injustice damages both individuals and communities, while addressing these issues helps everyone flourish. So, let me take a final look at what we've come up with for our humanistic beatitudes, I guess we can call them. So I'm going to read through those right now. Those who struggle financially are part of our common humanity. When we uplift them, everyone thrives. But if we hoard wealth and ignore the vulnerable, we create a society on shaky ground. When we acknowledge and strive to meet each other's basic needs, we strengthen our common bonds. But turning a blind eye to the hunger of others can erode compassion and community. Empathy for those in sorrow helps create deeper human connections. If we celebrate without acknowledging others' pain, we risk being shallow and disconnected. Standing up for what's right, even if it goes against the crowd, reflects a genuine integrity. Chasing popularity above all else can lead to moral compromise. I think those are pretty good. Like I said, it's not the most poetic language, but at their core, these statements challenge us to see beyond personal comfort and popularity. Hopefully they remind us that our well-being is intricately tied to how we treat the most vulnerable among us. Whether it's lending a hand to someone who's struggling financially, offering kindness to a friend who's grieving, or just having the courage to stand by your principles, even when it's not popular. These are all ways we can bring those values to life. No supernatural confirmation required. As a final reflection, think about how these ideas fit into your everyday life. Do you actively look for ways to help folks who are hurting? Are you willing to risk some social approval if it means doing the right thing? Asking these questions can guide each of us toward the kind of life where compassion, fairness, and integrity are more than just abstract concepts. They're choices that we make day after day. I hope these reimagined Beatitudes have shown you how we can take ideas that were originally presented with a heavy dose of supernatural framing and then help them to stand firmly, or at least more firmly, on their own merit. The humanistic beatitudes that I just shared, I think they're powered by compassion and community, not religious rules or magical rewards. By putting our energy into real-world solidarity, helping the poor, comforting those who suffer, and being honest even when it costs us something, we can stay true to the spirit of caring for the marginalized without needing the promise of heaven or the threat of hell. So where do you go from here? Well, adapt these principles to fit your own life. Maybe you donate time or money to local nonprofits, volunteer at community centers, or reach out to someone who's been isolated. Maybe you speak up at work or school when you see an injustice happening. Little steps like these don't just put these values into practice, they also help create a world that thrives on empathy and shared responsibility. That's the real call to action, turning these ancient-sounding teachings into modern acts of kindness, not because of heaven or hell, but because it will help unite us all and allow everyone to thrive. Well, thanks for joining me for this bonus episode called Afterthoughts. If you want to keep up on everything I'm doing, please head over to thecodaproject.com and subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get notifications whenever I publish anything, and also I'll keep you posted on any of the weekly live streams of Mythologizing the Bible and the Monday Masterclass. Also, if you subscribe for free over at thecodaproject.com, you'll start receiving my new weekly resource called The Weekly Compass. This is a brief, once-a-week guide on a single core value. Think of it as a mini lesson for personal growth. It's perfect for families, students, and adults because I include discussion questions designed for each age group. Each weekly issue centers on a short reflection about the week's value, followed by discussion questions tailored for different age groups, from kids to college students to adults, and a simple take action step, like a small challenge or exercise you can do to put that value into practice. Especially for families, it's an easy way to ensure that at least once a week, you're making time to talk about morality, ethics, and core values. So if you're interested, go subscribe for free at thecodaproject.com. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep seeking the truth.